Good morning, guys. So first, a couple of announcements. Like I've been saying for the past week, those grades are due in the grade book fairly soon. So if you have any outstanding work, you must submit it by tomorrow. And when you do submit it, text me to let me know that you have resubmitted. The reason I say text me is because Google Classroom does not let me see when you've resubmitted. So you might have redone an assignment, but I didn't know. So please make sure that when you finish an assignment that's late, that you make up, text me so that I know you've actually redone that assignment so I can go back in and grade it. That said, any work from this week, there is no late work. You cannot do late work this week. It will not be accepted. It is an automatic 0. So please make sure things are in on time. My final thing is anyone who wants a little boost in your grade, if you are someone who's like at a 60 and you need to get to a 65 so you can be passing, if you are in that 89 range and you want to get into the 90s, this week, every single assignment will have extra credit attached to it. That extra credit is there if you want to give your grade a little bit of a boost. So if at the end of the week you see your grade and you're like, wait, Ms. Lefevre, how can I get some extra credit so I can move up a little bit? I'm going to say you should have done the extra credit all week. So if you're someone who's in that boat, you want to boost yourself to the next level with a couple of points, make sure you take advantage of that extra credit this week, okay? So those are the 3 announcements. Extra credit, no late work. Make sure to submit any outstanding late assignments by tomorrow. If you have any questions about those 3 items, call me, text me, the usual, all right? Overall though, we're doing a fantastic job. I'm so proud of you guys. You're doing amazing. Finish strong. We're almost there, all right? Here we go. I will be able to explain the effect of the Columbian exchange on different groups. Okay, so first, before we really jump into this learning target, let's discuss the 3rd question of your RTL. So you were given this diagram of exchange, of trade between Europe, Asia, and Africa, as well as the Americas. You were asked in that 3rd question to pick one item from the diagram and think about how our lives would be different if this item was never traded and never made it to America. So this morning, your classmates had such insightful ideas about this. Madia and Jalen both mentioned that if we didn't have fruits, we wouldn't have any kind of product that's made of fruit. So that includes smoothies, fruit salads, anything we like that includes fruit in it, ice cream with fruits in it. We wouldn't have those products if fruits were not being exchanged between the Americas and the other half of the world during colonization. Somebody mentioned meats like chicken and ham, that we would never have those kinds of meats in the Americas had they not been exchanged as part of this trade. We would never have, somebody mentioned certain furs. Mark mentioned furs like wool, animal furs that are very popular in the Americas today. We would never have had these things had this trade not been happening. Okay, so there's a lot of positive ways in which this trade affected cultures across the world. But there's also a lot of very unfortunate and negative impacts of this trading that started happening as Europeans colonized the Americas. Our job today is going to be to focus on the negative. What were some of the negative aspects, the negative effects of this trade on different groups of people? Okay, so let's break down this word Columbian exchange, because that's obviously our new target, and we're about our new term, and we're about to watch a video that gives us a nice visual of this term. But first, let's break it down into its part. First, we have exchange. Exchange just means trade, trading back and forth. We can see in the diagram that there were lots of items that were traded back and forth across these different parts of the world. There were lots of items coming from Europe, Africa, and Asia that were traded with items coming from North and South America. We also have this first part of the term, Columbian. Columbian, in your head, you might think, oh, that sounds like Columbus. That's because this trade, this exchange of goods, is named after Columbus, who we all know. We have a lot of problems with this guy who's a very terrible person, evil man, but he gets, unfortunately, a lot of these titles. Columbus, we know, was involved in the process of colonization. Involved in that process of colonization. As Europeans start to settle more and more land across North America, as Europeans start to settle more and more land across North America, more and more trade starts to happen between the two halves of the world. Our job today is to figure out, how did all this trade that came about after colonization, what were the effects of all this trade that came about after colonization on different groups of people? So first, I've got a quick brain pop video that gives us a nice visual of the kind of trade that was happening between, I'm going to go back to the diagram. It gives us a nice visual of the kind of trade that's happening between the Americas and Europe, Africa, Asia during the time period of colonization. After the video, we'll go straight into an explanation of today's activity.
Whoa, space alien. Hey, I think he's friendly. Dear Tim and Moby, how did the Columbian exchange affect life in the Americas and around the world? From Shanna. That's a great question, and historians are still working out the answers. Here's what we know. Before Christopher Columbus's arrival in 1492, there were anywhere between 50 and 100 million people living in the Americas. These pre-Columbian civilizations were diverse and highly complex. In the South, there were cities whose size and architecture rivaled the great European capitals. In the North, some people enjoyed more political freedom than in Europe's most democratic nations. But after Columbus's voyage, everything began to change. Within a few hundred years, Europeans laid claim to the Americas and much of the rest of the world. Native populations shrank to a tiny fraction of their original size. Those who were left found themselves greatly outnumbered, living in a land they no longer controlled. How did such advanced populous societies lose so much so quickly? And how did Europe rise to global dominance within such a short period? According to many historians, the answers to both questions can be found in the Columbian exchange. That was the centuries-long swap of cultures, people, ideas, plants, animals, and even diseases that began in 1492. Before that date, Europe and the Americas might as well have been on different planets, thanks to the vast ocean separating them. But suddenly, there were ships traveling back and forth, carrying people, crops, and livestock to places they had never been before. Life changed almost immediately for the native people, as countries like Spain, Portugal, England, and France quickly set up colonies throughout the New World. That's true, the Europeans had guns, horses, and advanced military tactics. But that doesn't explain how they were able to take over so quickly. As it turns out, their deadliest weapons were microscopic. Diseases like smallpox, the flu, malaria, and yellow fever were carried over the ocean by their European hosts. Native people had no natural defenses against these new germs. They got sick by the millions in what is now called the Great Dying. Smallpox was especially devastating, wiping out entire civilizations. Wherever contact was made, native people died off, making it that much easier for Europeans to gain a foothold. Yeah, and from Mexico to South America, many natives were enslaved and forced to mine for gold and silver. The Spanish and Portuguese sent these metals by the boatload back to Europe. But they also brought back edible treasures. Europeans had never seen crops like potatoes, corn, and cassava before. These high-energy foods grew well in tough conditions, helping people survive famines and live longer. As a result, populations in Europe and Africa swelled at the same time that they were plummeting in the Americas. This helped fuel the migration of millions of people to the New World. Meanwhile, newly discovered cash crops like tobacco, vanilla, and cocoa enriched Europe even more. Oh, no, stuff moved in the other direction too. Religion was one of the first exports to the New World. Missionaries converted thousands of native people to Christianity, occasionally by force. But since it was illegal to enslave Christians, Native Americans often converted on their own, just to keep themselves free. That's true. Native Americans didn't just passively react to the changes going on all around them. In North America, the Plains Indians took advantage of European horses, radically altering their own culture. That kind of adaptation was repeated throughout the Americas with metal cookware, guns, and wheeled vehicles. Native people also benefited from newly introduced crops, like wheat. Oh yeah, the Europeans brought tons of new crops to the Americas, including wheat, rice, oranges, bananas, apples, and coffee.
So that video does give us a nice visual understanding of how products moved, how products, people, ideas, religions moved back and forth. Moved back and forth between the Americas and Europe, Africa, and Asia. Your job today is to figure out how the Columbian exchange, how this trade affected different groups of people. And we're especially going to focus on the negative effects. Directions. Using the documents, we're going to start from here. Using the documents included in the link below, determine how the Columbian exchange affected different groups of people. There are a variety of documents, pictures, graphs, and text. You must complete your chart for 2 documents. Every additional row you complete is extra credit. You can earn up to a 14 out of 10 on this assignment. That's a nice bump for those who want those extra points. To access your documents, you're going to have to click on the link. Click on the link to get to the documents, and you'll notice that there are 4 documents. You only need to complete 2 documents. Pick the 2 documents which seem most interesting to you. Then fill in your graphic organizer, answering each question in the column.